Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup for the week of June 2nd, 2025. This week brought to you by Richard Childress Racing, Bass Pro Shops, and the National Shooting Sports Foundation, NSSF. Thank you all very much for your support of this particular program. This week's lead story, Rhode Island state, air quotes, assault weapons ban imminent. Christian Ragost joins me here momentarily. CSF priority legislation to conserve forest land introduced in the House. Florida takes one step towards reestablishing black bear hunting season in Florida. A look back at the 2025 Missouri legislative session. And then we wrap it up in Hawaii, where the agency there announces wildlife conservation and game bird contest winners. That should be cool. All that and more. Let us welcome in Christian Ragost. Christian, thanks so much for carving out the time. I know your voice is a little challenged dealing with the Northeast pollen as it is, and maybe a bit more. So I'll turn it over to you. What in the craziness is going on in Rhode Island?
Well, thanks for having me, Fred. I don't want to say we got blindsided by this. It seems like each state has been trying to pick up some sort of ban on firearms, and they're trying to use the misnomer of assault weapon, as you said, quote unquote assault weapon, which is just a made up term. And it's really going after a lot of law abiding good people. We here with CSF, we try to protect hunting, fishing, trapping, and recreational shooters. And I don't think people realize how big the recreational shooting space is for conservation funding. When we talk about the American system of conservation funding, I've heard upwards of almost 80%. I've heard numbers that high saying that recreational shooters give that much to conservation efforts. So it is kind of on us to make sure we're protecting law-abiding citizens who are protecting our conservation rights. These so-called assault weapons bans, they're identifying firearms a lot of times with detachable magazines. They're trying to identify these as scary, like as weapons of war, and they're not. As a seasoned hunter and shooter yourself, I'm sure you've seen thumbhole stocked shotguns. You know, a lot of folks with scope shotguns, rifles, they like a thumbhole in there. Pistol grips, they're calling that one cosmetic feature of Rhode Island, whether it be a barrel shroud, if you can wrap your hand all the way around the barrel, not have to worry about getting burned. That's considered an assault weapon feature now. A pistol grip, as I mentioned, thumbhole stock. If you have an extendable stock, if you have a telescopic stock to make it fit your body better, they're calling that an assault weapon feature now, which is silly. It's a feature to allow people to more comfortably operate a firearm. And they're using hyperbolic language. They throw in stuff like you can't have a grenade launcher on your firearm. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah,
In today's day
all
and
of us
age?
are running around with 203s on our.
Right.
That's so stupid.
Not to make it too long, but Rhode Island, they have two bills in the House and the Senate. They're trying to pass a pretty egregious penalties if you own one of these quote unquote assault weapons. If you don't get it registered, it's 10 years in prison or $10,000 in fines. You do have a 1-year grandfather period, so you could go register it, but now you're giving up your fingerprints, your name. There's a fee associated with it. All sorts of that stuff that has to go through the state. The application process hasn't even been made yet. So will it be the year after the application is made or a year after the actual law is passed? That's a whole other question. So it's just, thumping people over the head. Gun violence is the screaming motif of the anti-gunners who want to pass this. Rhode Island, I think there were 12 gun homicides this past year. Obviously, we don't want to see anyone getting hurt by a firearm, but it just seems very misplaced that they're going after long guns when handguns are obviously an issue when it comes to criminality. But they're hurting those who want to have the firearm of their choice, especially those who snow geese hunt, recreational shoot. So yeah, it's a big ugly mess, and we're seeing state by state, especially in the Northeast, try to pass this stuff.
I think what's so damn tiresome about this whole what do I want to call it? A strategy, a talking point. Like at this point, it's just damn annoying because I feel like our community is constantly have the record on repeat, man. And we continue to say the same things over and over again, and just no one listens. I don't understand it. We acknowledge that criminals are going to do criminal things. So despite all of this, all of your law-abiding gun owners who aren't committing crimes, who are doing the right thing, who are using these tools to hunt, to shoot recreational, to have for home defense, are not out there perpetrating crimes. Yet we are the ones that bear the brunt of all this. And like I said, criminals are going to do criminal stuff. So none of this matters. This is foolishness, and this is a feel good, as we often see, measure where they got to do something to affect, this boogeyman that truly doesn't exist. I mean, you just said, I mean, 12 gun homicides is terrible. We want to see it zero. In the grand scheme of things, I would love to know how those 12 homicides bore out and if those guns were legally owned, if they went through a legal process. We often find out none of those boxes are checked. So all of this wouldn't have stopped a crime anyway, right?
That's right. Rhode Island provides that information if you wanna look up what guns were used and what crimes and how they're obtained.
Yeah,
They have a gun violence program. You can look it up online right now.
that would be certainly interesting. You mentioned American System of Conservation funding stands to lose with something like this. Um, what is, something like this, and we saw it in Massachusetts with the Chapter 135 debacle that is still being challenged. It's not like law-abiding Rhode Island sportsmen and women can just hop over the border or come up to New Hampshire or Maine or Vermont, where states are friendly to this, purchase something and then bring it back over because now they're still in jeopardy of being, criminals, which is ridiculous. So all of a sudden, seemingly overnight, people are going to be in in folly of this just because this 1 year grandfathering thing, and you said they don't even have a system for that. Like, if it takes up to a year, how are they possibly gonna, if they so choose to register their firearms to be in compliance? Like, it seems like a trap.
Yeah, that's, this kinda goes back to a strategy back in the '80s. This it's called the Brady Campaign, against gun violence. It's a group that was named after the staffer who was shot, when Ronald Reagan was they attempted to assassinate Ronald Reagan, and they tried to ban handguns. That was the origin of this organization, was to ban handguns. It's been documented that they had decided because they could not ban handguns because so many people use them for self-defense and regular use, that they go after what's scary. And they thought these quote unquote assault weapons, or black guns, we call them modern sporting rifles because we use them for sport. They're used for hunting, they're used for competitions,
They were
they're used for
developed for
enjoyment.
by Colt.
That's right. Colt AR-15 is Armalite rifle. It's the named after the brand. It has nothing to do with assault rifle,
What,
anything
it
like
wasn't
that.
even a military grade weapon platform when it came
That's right.
out.
That's
It's just
right.
so
Still is.
dumb. No, and it's not right. And then furthermore, going back to the furniture components to this, again, the record's on repeat. These are creature comforts, you fools. Like, the gun is no more lethal by adding a pistol grip, by adding a collapsible stock. I'm not rich, so the variants that I have, I want my kids to be able to use and be comfortable with when we go afield. So if I add that furniture or that extra thing that to collapse that stock so it fits my kids better, so they can shoot better, that's not a crime. That's not doing anything more other than being responsible. So, excuse me. Again, record on repeat. We're saying the same thing we've been saying for 40 plus years around this. And here we are, we're kicking the dead dog. And unfortunately, and I'll let you update the audience, like, this has a chance of getting through in Rhode Island, really, really causing a lot of trouble for law abiding citizens.
It really does. Unfortunately, there's just so many sponsors of this legislation, and let's be clear, Rhode Island, they're not stopping. Just previously, they had passed a magazine capacity bill, so they haven't even waited to see if that's changed any criminality or any issues on the books. They're going after the next thing. They're going after the next thing. There's no stop. We don't see a stop coming. They just want to get rid of all firearms, period. Which doesn't stop the criminals, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So, what had happened was the president of the Senate passed away pretty recently, just a month or so ago, and there was some contention of who's going to take charge. The new majority leader, the Democrat leader of the Senate, is actually an FFL, so he is a federal firearms licensed dealer. He sells firearms for a living. He had to go through an ethics commission to find out if he's even allowed to vote on this issue.
Interesting.
They did come up with the answer of yes, he's allowed to vote for it. But the biggest thing was to have a chilling effect that he could not go and like talk about the bill to his fellow Democrats. So yes, you can vote on it, but it made it a real big mess on you may not be allowed to speak on this. So why don't you keep your mouth shut until we make this decision? That stinks. That really stinks that they had to kind of go through this process. So we had a very friendly individual to the Second Amendment to firearms who's in a leadership position, but these bills, they got through their judiciary, or they got up to the judiciary committees of both chambers, the Senate and the House, and they got put on what's called a to be held for further study is procedural move in Rhode Island, which basically stops the debate. So there's lots of people that showed up early on. Our friends from National Wildlife Turkey Federation were on this. The National Rifle Association were on this. There were a lot of people that were there in Providence, and they just stopped the debate and said, "We're going to hold on to this for further study." A lot of people thought that meant the bill was dead. That is not the case at all. It just lets them bring them back up when they want to.
I will echo what you're saying and go a little deeper as I ended our show last week about the accuracy of this program, of the stuff that CSF puts out, that sometimes we're not the first to break the news, but when we do, we're accurate. And we did see with numerous, I'm not going to call them up by name, but numerous organizations came out swinging on this victory, victory, the bill is dead, ding dong, the witch is dead. And as you rightfully pointed out, and you in real time, we're calling it out like this is not dead. This information that is being perpetrated on social media and otherwise is incorrect. And it came back almost as quick as it went. You're right.
That's right. And I do have to give a shout out to our friends I just mentioned from the NRA and NWTF for being on top of this, but also our Rhode Island Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus have been fantastic. Leader
Mhm.
Chippendale, Senator Dela Cruz, they know exactly what's going on. They know it's not stopping either. Like I've been told that they've even had that question of like, hey, well, when does it stop? And they don't get an answer of like what the end purpose is. There is no end purpose other than to get rid of firearms. So they're trying their best. We've been in touch. I really appreciate their efforts. So we're kind of waiting on if it gets through these judiciary committees, and I think it's like hanging on like a one vote margin, but they're not friendly votes there in the committees. So
It's unfortunate because I think, as you pointed out, the leader's replacement, um, majority leader with an FFL, like, and we know this, right? This is what we talk about. This is what our organization is all about. This isn't a partisan deal. Like, plenty of Democrats, plenty of Republicans like to go out and shoot, as we see at our Congressional Sporting Clays event, as we see in the recess event. Like, that's not partisan. That's it, but they make it. And in a state like Rhode Island, where there is super majority, like, all of a sudden now it's a partisan party line thing, and I would question the legality of stepping on a man's First Amendment rights, not letting him be able to speak just because you don't like that he's gonna come down against you. That seems, ludicrous.
there, Rhode Island is very sensitive. They have very strict lobby laws. Like they're on top of people getting involved and how they can benefit from the advocacy world
Sure.
type stuff. So I can understand from the books where they're coming from. But I 100% agree with you. Is like this man has a level of knowledge that I guarantee no one else in that chamber has, particularly in his political party. And they're saying you can't talk about this to educate people who need to know how firearms are really used. I already joked they were talking about you can't have a bayonet mount or grenade launcher on your quote unquote assault weapon. That's you can't have a grenade launcher period in America. You need to have a special federal license. Like it's nuts to get something like
It
that.
it reminds me of Prop 127 in Colorado when those fools added the Canadian links in the lower 48. Like, it's a red herring that doesn't exist. You can't already do that. And the same thing here. And what's funny about that is facts matter, right? And they are silencing this man because he can bring the receipts, he can bring facts and probably dismantle this entire argument. And it sounds like they're putting the muffle on him, which sucks. But listen, that's apparently Rhode Island politics. We do the best with what we got. I know you're working your backside off, and certainly appreciate you and the leadership there with the Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus. I know leadership in Daly's fantastic. Senator Dela Cruz does good work. Senator Rogers. So keep plugging away, Christian. We thank you for your reporting. And maybe there's a Hail Mary miracle here at the end, and then this thing doesn't go anywhere else. But you'll update us. Thank you so much.
You got it, Fred. Again, it's up in the judiciary. I think there might have actually been a meeting today, so we just need to find out what has happened. Yeah, we're at the leadership's discretion, and we'll see what happens.
All
Court
right.
cases might be coming.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we'll leave it there, Christian. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Fred.
All right, my thanks to Christian for that reporting. Yeah, that's no good, not good news there in the Ocean State. Certainly do our best with our partners and our leadership there in the legislature. Before we continue on, I do ask that at this time, if you've not already done it, please subscribe to this program, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, anywhere else. Bring your phone out right now, as I always say, as long as you're not driving. Takes like 10 seconds. Go to this episode, scroll down, hit follow. There's stars there. If you could hit the 5th star, fill all those stars in as well. Really appreciate it. If you're so inclined to leave a comment, even better. Your participation in the program, just simply subscribing, following, or rating helps this show move up and be seen and discoverable by folks who may not have been witness to it before. So we thank you as always for that support. Now let us continue on with the headlines. CSF priority legislation to conserve forest land introduced in the House. This coming from our Director of Forestry, John Colclaser. Conserving private forests is critical to maintaining habitat for fish and wildlife, as well as access for hunters and anglers. Whether it is a large tract of timberland or a small family-owned parcel, private forest stands provide places across the country for sportsmen and women to recreate. The conversation of forest and non-forest use is a threat to our sporting traditions, and the Forest Conservation Easement Program would provide landowners more options to voluntarily conserve their land for future generations. The biggest threats to privately owned forests in the United States, which comprises of roughly 58% of forest land in the country, are development, conversion, and fragmentation as the population continues to grow. By 2060, the population is projected to increase approximately 450 million, and 37 million acres of forest could be lost as a result. Privately owned forests, subject to conservation easements, stay in private ownership, subject to county real estate taxes, and continue to be actively managed for forest products, wildlife habitat, and recreational access. The Forest Conservation Easement Program would fill a gap in federal conservation programs for forests by allowing state and local governments, tribal agencies, and land trusts to purchase and hold voluntarily conservation agreements for landowners. On May 17th, Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus member Representative Trent Kelly and Representative Maggie Goodlander, along with several co-sponsors, introduced the Forest Conservation Easement Program Act of 2025, supported by Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and a coalition of other conservation organizations. The Act for 2025 builds on the Act of 2023 that had a strong bipartisan support in the 118th Congress. The CSC members, Senator Christian Gillibrand and Senator Roger Wicker, introduced the Senate version of the Forest Conservation Easement Program 2025 in March. While the House and Senate versions differ slightly, the bills are mostly similar and aim to conserve forest through voluntary conservation agreements. The legislation would expand on Healthy Forest Reserve Program, renaming it the Forest Conservation Easement Program, in the Farm Bill's conservation title. Landowners would have two options to conserve their forest land: forest land easements, which are modeled after agricultural land easements under the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and forest reserve easements, which are modeled after and are the successor to HFRP. The program would be administrated by the U.S. Department of Ag, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and land trust, and state, local, and tribal agencies would be eligible to purchase and hold conservation easements on working forests. Landowners would be required to create forest management plans prior to closing on the program. Would be purchased directly from landowners, and NRCS would be easement holders. Landowners would be required to draft a reserve easement plan that lays out the management activities, including silviculture practices to restore habitat for at-risk species. CSF thanks Representative Goodlander and Kelly, as well as their co-sponsors, for their leadership on this important issue for the sporting community, forest industry, and other conservation organizations. CSF will continue advocating for the Forest Conservation Easement Program Act to keep forests as forests, to support habitat for fish and wildlife, and access for hunters and anglers. Next up, big controversial topic here. Florida takes another step towards reestablishing a black bear hunting season. This from Mark Lance. Thanks to the conservation management efforts of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and their partners, utilizing funds generated in large part by hunters through the American System of Conservation Funding, data supports establishing a highly regulated hunting season for black bears in Florida. This would provide hunters the opportunity to pursue a species in which their conservation dollars played a role in ensuring healthy black bear populations to a point where the hunting season can be considered. During the December 2024 commission meeting, FWC staff were instructed to put together options for a black bear hunting season in 2025. In advance of the May 25 meeting, where those options would be presented, CSF submitted comments in support of reestablishing the black bear seasons in Florida. On May 21st, CSF's assistant manager, Southeastern States, Mark Lance, spoke at the commission meeting, urging the commission to follow the science presented by the FWC staff and vote favorably on bringing the black bear season back to Florida. The commission voted 4-1 to accept FWC's alternative 2, which would allow for black bear hunting in the future. The proposal will have its final vote at the commission's August meeting, where, if it passes, the black bear season will take place this December 2025. Formulating wildlife policy utilizing the best available science is also one of the key tenets of the North American model of wildlife conservation, which is regarded as the most effective wildlife management model in the world. FWC presented that data and shows that bears are stable and increasing statewide. With an estimated population of 4,000 bears, Florida has far and away the most bears of the 6 states that have resident bear populations that are not hunted. If Alternative 2 is approved in August, the commission will have the ability to set the season structure between October 1st and December 31st and determine the number of tags to be distributed to meet management objectives. For the 2025 season, the dates would fall from the first Saturday in December to the last Sunday in December, with 187 tags being made available through a lottery system across 4 proposed bear hunting zones. All legal methods of take for deer would be allowed for black bears. In subsequent seasons, the use of dogs would be allowed, as well as to aid in selective harvest. There would also be private lands bears harvest program created that would incentivize large landowners with 5,000 acres or more of contiguous land to conserve bear habitat and provide owners with no more than 3 tags to hunt and harvest bears on their property. CSF's letter of support towards establishing a black bear hunting season stated, hunters in the Sunshine State should be afforded the opportunity to pursue black bears through regulated hunting supported by science-based wildlife management decision-making. Sportsman generated conservation dollars played a critical part in its recovery and would further support black bear conservation in the state. CSF applauds the commission for voting favorably on the proposal, and we look forward to continuing to work alongside our partners to bring a black bear season back to Florida. That's great news. Mark was directly involved with Louisiana, realizing a well regulated black bear season. And same thing here, sporting dollars and sound science based wildlife management, able to bring a black bear season to Louisiana. We have the same thing here in Florida. And it's definitely worth pointing out there was a 80-year-old fella that was killed and his dog consumed by a black bear not very long ago here in recent months. So, I mean, stands to reason too, aside from the opportunities for sportsmen and women for those 187 tags potentially, it also helps mitigate these human animal conflicts that we hear about that you saw happening in New Jersey, that we've seen in Connecticut. Connecticut, as this show drops, it's their last day in session. We are hoping that Connecticut is taking another step to bring about a very regulated, and we can get into that as an update if it does pass. Connecticut's on the horizon of bringing some black bear. So all this to say that as cute and cuddly as these things look, and that's the problem a lot of people have getting over, we have to understand it's a renewable resource. They're they have to be managed just as you would manage any ungulate species that people don't have a problem with being taken off the land. Same thing with birds and turkeys and things like that. So it's always the furry critters that get the Disney treatment, and the people have a hard time getting over. But if you were that old man's family that lost their loved one and their dog was eaten, like, come on, you gotta be smart about this thing, kinda get over your own, biases and realize that the science is driving this. We always hear trust the science in so many different, areas of our culture. Here, especially, trust the science, and good things can come of it, and to include a healthy population, right? We're not just doing this just to wipe them all out. That's just not even a thing. I digress. It's good news there in Florida, and hopefully we'll look forward to Mark bringing us some better news about a potential season coming in December. All right, closing up shop here. We're gonna head to Hawaii, where the DLNR announces wildlife conservation and game bird stamp contest winners. This from Marie Newmiller. The Hawaii Wildlife Conservation and Game Bird Stamp Art Contest highlights the intersection between art, hunting, and conservation, showcasing native and introduced species while supporting critical wildlife management programs. Funds from stamp sales directly bolster Hawaii's Wildlife Revolving Fund, ensuring sustainable habitats and hunting opportunities for future generations. The initiative underscores the vital role of sportsmen and women in conservation through the American System of Conservation Funding. Winners were recently announced for the 2025-26 Hawaii Wildlife Conservation and Game Bird Stamp Art Contest, featuring Manoa Kua and Urkel's Frankolin. I tried my best. I hope I got them close. Stamp sales fund the Wildlife Revolving Fund, supporting habitat management and hunting programs. CSF is a strong advocate for the American System of Conservation Funding, highlighting sportsmen's contributions to conservation nationwide. The Hawaii Department of Land and Natural Resources Division of Forestry and Wildlife announced its winners for the contest for 2025-26 and celebrated tradition blending artistic talent with conservation advocacy. Patrick Ching's depiction of the Manuokua, I think, a native white tern that thrives in urban community forests, earned the conservation stamp honor, aligning with the 2025's designation as the Year of Community Forests by Governor Josh Green, MD. Meanwhile, David Kay's artwork for the Urkel's Frankolin, an introduced game bird from Ethiopia and Sudan, secured the game bird stamp win. These stamps require for state hunting licenses not only celebrate Hawaii's unique biodiversity, but also fund critical wildlife programs through the state's Wildlife Revolving Fund, which last year supported hunting maintenance in the hunting units and expanded hunting opportunities. Hawaii's hunting license structure, including mandatory conservation and game bird stamps, exemplifies the user pay public benefits funding structure that channels revenue directly into wildlife management. This approach mirrors the broader American system of conservation funding, which has been the cornerstone of the U.S. conservation efforts over 80 years. Through hunting, trapping, and fishing license fees, the excise tax on sporting goods via Pittman Robinson and Dingle Johnson uh, contribute significantly to the state fish and wildlife agencies. In 2024, these efforts generated approximately $1.3 billion from PR funds and $430 million from DJ funds supporting state fish and wildlife agencies nationwide, including an estimated $10.5 million to the Hawaii Agency for their conservation efforts. The Hawaii model integrated into the ASCF demonstrates how targeted funding sustains ecosystems and outdoor tradition. By requiring stamps for hunting licenses, Hawaii ensures that sportsmen contribute to habitat preservation and species management, such as efforts amid the access deer populations. CSF champions this framework, advocating for policies that protect hunting, trapping, and fishing rights while securing conservation funding. Through partnership with state and federal agencies, CSF has helped to pass resolutions in 25 states celebrating ASCF's impact and works to educate policymakers on the importance of sportsman driven conservation. The synergy of local initiatives like Hawaii Stamp Contest and national advocacy ensures that wildlife and public access to natural resources thrive for generations. Thank you to Marie for her reporting. We'll wrap it up after this here. This is a look back at the Missouri legislative session recap. While Missouri has concluded a relatively quiet legislative session as it relates to sportsmen and women, the Missouri Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus accomplished many key goals that were set for 2025. From adopting official caucus bylaws to electing new co-chairs to hosting and participating in several important events to increase awareness of the caucus, the Missouri Caucus has had a year worth celebrating. These accomplishments highlight the important role that NASC-affiliated caucuses can play even outside the halls of state capitals. As many sportsmen and women from the Show Me State are aware, most of the decisions regarding hunting, fishing, trapping in Missouri are made by the Missouri Conservation Commission. Thanks to both the authority vested in the commission via Missouri's Constitution and the provision of widely successful 1/8 of 1% conservation sales tax. While this unique structure and funding stream precludes many of these sportsmen's policy conversations on which NASC affiliated engage, it does not mean that the Missouri Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus is unproductive. In fact, the recent 2025 legislative session that concluded represents one of the caucus's most productive sessions in recent memory. Earlier in the year, the caucus hosted a meeting to finally and officially adopt a set of bylaws that will guide the operations of the caucus in a manner that aligns with the mission and objective of the NASC. These bylaws include a leadership election structure, which will be used upon adoption to elect caucus's bipartisan leaders, including Representatives Tim Taylor and Bridget Walsh Moore, and Senators Jason Bean and Tracy McCree. These leaders have strong history of bipartisan camaraderie within the realm of sportsmen and women. The leaders are also joined by NASC Executive Council member Representative Bruce Sassman. After adopting bylaws and electing leaders, the caucus immediately shifted gears toward events designed to strengthen the caucus by highlighting the opportunities that Missouri has to offer its sportsmen and women. These events included a reception and trout fishing excursion during the opening day of Missouri's trout season where caucus members were joined by newly minted governors. Sportsmen's caucus member, Governor Mike Kehoe. From there, the caucus hosted a bipartisan firearms training course for members, a fish fry alongside members of the sporting conservation community, and sponsored and participated in the governor's youth turkey hunt led by the Conservation Federation of Missouri. While policy items could not be a primary focus for the 25 legislative session for the Missouri Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus, these accomplishments represent an important caucus function. While many states are dealing with efforts related to funding or attempts to undermine opportunities for sportsmen and women, the Missouri Caucus is educating its members, setting the stage for continued support for the sporting conservation community and the work of the Missouri Department of Conservation and Missouri Conservation Commission. Now, that's the show. That's very cool. And that's a good example of how a lot of stuff should work if we have a slower legislative session, capitalizing on the opportunity for education and advocacy. And we can certainly help there as well and provide resources. So thank you for the reporting and the good efforts there in Missouri, Kent. All right. As usual, every Wednesday, we're here doing this thing. If you're new to the program, be sure to, like I said earlier, subscribe, rate, follow. Never miss a show. We do this every Wednesday, bringing the latest and greatest in conservation, sporting news from around the nation, from your state houses to the hill. Every other Thursday, we bring you a feature episode. This particular Thursday, we do not, but I do invite you to go back to last Thursday's show where I sit down with President and CEO of NSSF, Joe Bartozzi, who is also a CSF board member. We talk about the initiative, Lock It Up Week, gun child safety month here in June. I'm under twisted those words around, but all to say, an important episode on gun safety, storage, and as a resource to anyone that is currently a firearm owner or first-time buyer, first-time operator. So do check that out. Head over to NSSF, like those posts, and let them know you heard it on the Sportsman's Voice podcast. That's it. We will see you all next Wednesday and a new feature on Thursday. As always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. Until next week, we will see you. So long. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.